Good morning and welcome to World News, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Strzemska. And we start off in Serbia, where after months of anti-government rallies, counter-protests are now emerging. Demonstrations took place around 140 towns and cities, with President Alexander Vučić joining one of them. The demonstrators gathered to oppose, quote, violence and blockades that are associated with the anti-government protest movement. Banners saying, "I want peace and I want work," could be seen in the crowd. The anti-government protests have entered their 10th month. They started on November 1st last year after a canopy of a railway station in Novi Sad collapsed, killing 16 people. This tragic event sparked protests over state capture and corruption that, although initially peaceful, have turned violent in recent months. Almost 3 decades after the end of the war, Bosnia and Herzegovina remains divided. The Bosniak Croat Federation on one side and Republika Srpska, until recently led by Milorad Dodik, on the other, now awaiting a crucial vote. Our reporter Paweł Trzaskowski has been on the ground. Let's take a look at his preview.
At some points we think that we didn't move much ahead.
My mum managed to get the last ticket on the last bus out of Sarajevo.
There's an expression that often gets used, which is negative peace, which is conflict with the absence of violence.
We will air the full report shortly after the news bulletin. We'll also speak with Paweł about his investigation. Protesters took to the streets of Sofia on Saturday to speak out against replacing the Bulgarian lev with the euro. The protest was organized by the pro-Russian right-wing party Revival. Protesters cited alleged financial and economic problems in France, Germany and Italy as part of their argument against adopting the euro and voiced their opposition to European investments in weapons and ammunition production in Bulgaria. The leader of the Revival Party, Konstantin Kostadinov, urged supporters to flood the streets again on Thursday and to boycott the parliament by preventing the members of parliament from leaving the building after the expected vote on the no-confidence motion against the prime minister. Similar protests were held in Russe and Varna. Ukrainian drones hit the Kirishi oil refinery in Russia's Leningrad region in an overnight attack which sparked a fire on site. The Kirishi oil refinery is one of the largest in the country and has a processing capacity of over 17 million tons of oil per year. Regional Governor Alexander Drozdenko reported that the fire was started by wreckage from a downed drone which crashed at the refinery. The fire has since been extinguished and there were no casualties. This latest strike on the refinery comes shortly after one of the largest drone attacks on the Leningrad region since the start of the war. Ukrainian drones attacked Primorsk, Russia's largest oil-loading port on the Baltic Sea, overnight on September 12th. Air raid sirens rang out in eastern Poland on Saturday due to Russian attacks in Ukraine. While the alerts have since been called off, the country remains vigilant to potential new threats. An air raid alert was issued in Poland's Lublin province, affecting the cities of Chełm, Krasnystaw, Łęczyca, Świdnica and Włodawa. Emergency sirens were activated in Chełm and Świdnik, and Lublin Airport temporarily suspended operations during the alert. In response to Russian drone activity near the border, the Polish armed forces, supported by Allied assets, scrambled jets. After approximately 45 minutes, the alert was lifted. Since Wednesday, Poland has been on high alert following the incursion of Russian drones into its airspace, which is seen as a direct provocation aimed at the country as well as its NATO allies. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said there is no doubt Russia launched the drones on Wednesday, September 10th, but it's unclear if Poland was the intended target. He called the incident unacceptable and unfortunate.
Well, there's still a lot of gathering happening. Irrespective, it shouldn't have happened. I don't think anybody's happy about it seeing happen. You saw NATO respond to it appropriately. We don't want to see it happen again. We think it's a unacceptable and unfortunate and dangerous development in this regard. I think it'll take a few more days for everybody to fully... The drones were intentionally launched. There's no doubt about the drones were intentionally launched. The question is whether the drones were targeted to go into Poland specifically. If that's the case, if the evidence leads us there, then obviously that'll be a highly escalatory move. There are a number of other possibilities as well, but I think we'd like to have all the facts and consult with our allies before we make, specific determinations.
Putin is gambling, said Colonel John Sweet, former director of the Intelligence Engagement Division at the U.S. European Command, in an interview with TVP World. He was referring to Russia's latest provocation. The conversation came just hours after Eastern Poland had air raid sirens for the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022.
Russia's looking for that red line. They're looking to see how far they can push that envelope. That red line is going to occur when someone is killed, okay, or someone is wounded, or a base or a facility is targeted deliberately with, that's where it's going to be. And right now, and it's difficult sometimes to sit back and listen to some of senior NATO leadership, and I'm saying on the civilian side, saying, well, it was an intrusion, but it was over an area that wasn't populated. Well, they crossed our border, but they didn't really do anything. That is expanding and enabling Russia to go further by letting them cross across your border. Let's think for a minute what Russia would do right now if a NATO drone or a NATO aircraft crossed into Kaliningrad airspace or crossed into Belarusian airspace, demonstrating hostile intent possibly to missile launch sites in the Belarusian territory. They would be shot down more. I mean, I can almost guarantee they would be shot down. A reaction force would occur and there would be immediate reaction. Putin is confident that NATO does not want to take action. Rather, they want to try to limit his abilities and what he is doing. And he is gambling that they won't.
New satellite images suggest Moscow may be stepping up preparations for a long confrontation with Europe. Analysts say a newly built radar complex in Russia's Kaliningrad exclave, just miles from NATO borders, could have far-reaching security implications. Open-source analysts from Copernicus revealed images of a massive circular antenna array under construction in Kaliningrad, a heavily militarized Russian exclave between Poland and Lithuania. Experts say it could be used for signals intelligence or very low-frequency communication with submarines. Kaliningrad already hosts advanced missile systems and a large naval base. Analysts warn the new installation reinforces the view that Russia is preparing for a prolonged confrontation with NATO. Also, in an as of yet unconfirmed video posted on censor.net today, Russian Iskander missile systems were filmed in combat order on a motorway in the Kaliningrad region near the border with Poland. This, however, is likely part of the Zapad 2025 exercises currently taking place in Russia and Belarus. 3 Rafale fighter jets sent by France have already begun flying patrols over Poland, deployed as part of NATO's mission to bolster its eastern flank. The decision to send the jets followed an incident in which Russian drones violated Polish airspace in the early hours of Wednesday morning. French President Emmanuel Macron further emphasized that France remains vigilant alongside its allies. This development ties its NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte's announcement on Friday of the Eastern Sentry mission aimed at strengthening the alliance's eastern flank in response to Russian threats. Along with France's Rafale jets, Danish F-16s, German Eurofighters and other aircraft have joined the mission. I will sanction Russia, but you go first. U.S. President Donald Trump said he was ready to sanction Russia, but on the condition that all NATO allies agree to completely halt purchases of Russian oil and jointly impose tariffs on China ranging from 50 to 100%. In his letter to NATO, published on Truth Social, Trump wrote that only powerful tariffs could break the Chinese grip over Russia and in what he called this ridiculous war.
Donald Trump has a message for his NATO allies. A message that says, it's not my war, but I can help you end it. But there is a condition: NATO countries must stop buying oil from Russia.
If NATO does as I say, the war will end quickly and all of those lives will be saved. If not, you are just wasting my time and the time, energy and money of the United States.
That's a quote from a statement the US president posted on Saturday on his social media platform.
NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%, and the purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. Anyway, I am ready to go when you are. Just say when.
In every month of 2025 so far, EU member states, most of which are also members of NATO, remained the fourth largest buyer of Russian fossil fuels. That's according to data collected by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air.
These things have to stop, and it will mean higher energy prices for the short term. But at the same time, that could be mitigated if Europe were to relax some of its rules against fossil fuels. These rules maybe made sense 5-10 years ago before the war in Ukraine.
The first responses to Donald Trump's words came quickly.
We are determined and unequivocal. We say a firm no to buying from Russia.
But not all EU members share this sentiment. For the past 6 months, Hungary remained the biggest buyer of Russian fossil fuels within the bloc.
American pressure is especially important in Central and Eastern Europe, where you have multiple pro-American governments, including the government in Budapest. American pressure on quitting reliance on Russian supplies is adding to this effort coming from European Commission.
We see the position of the United States of America, and that this position should be heard by all those who still choose to source from Russia rather than from other partners. Everyone who wants to end this war must do what is necessary to stop the Russian war machine. We are counting on strong steps from the United States, together with everyone else, a strong sanctions and tariff policy. This will be an argument for many in the world.
And while Russian fuels are cheaper,
gas and oil are available today from other countries. Liquefied natural gas is available from the United States, from Qatar, and there are many countries around the world that would be happy to sell oil to Europe. It may be a little bit more expensive than the cheaper Russian oil, but this is what you have to do if you really want to starve the Russian war machine of revenue.
Trump also wants NATO members to impose additional tariffs on China ranging from 50 to 100%, which would be scrapped after the war ends. For TVP World, I'm Agata Dura.
It's so pathetic.
And that's a wrap for this news bulletin. World Talks coming up next. I'm going to speak to my colleague Paweł Trzaskowski about his report on Bosnia and Herzegovina.